My name is Kim Salac. I'm a filmmaker, sometimes interdisciplinary artist. Mostly I do films and video art, but then sometimes I get wacky and try other things. I went to University of Virginia, but they had a film concentration in the fine arts program there, and I studied under this filmmaker, Kevin Everson, who's he's kind of a famous analog filmmaker. What I mean by analog, it's like the literal 60mm film. And I think he was like, that process made me feel really connected to the material in a way that, like, for example, when you shoot digital, there's like a disconnect. There's like a feeling there's like an infinite possibility that seems a little bit daunting, but also kind of like a little bit like, where do you start? A little bit undisciplined if you don't like know what you're doing. And I think starting in like 60mm where there's a finite resource. Every time I film something, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna do 10 feet of this shot. You know, like I'm planning out like, okay, how much film do I have left? And then I've also been, experimented with double exposure on film, which means like you had to be like, okay, like from 1 to 20 feet, I'm shooting this. The next time I go around 1 to 20 feet, I shot this. What is the next composition overlaid onto the first? You know, there's like a sense of like, oh, like I really have to really think about what I'm shooting. That makes you slow down. I'm interested in archives. I'm interested in going back into old footage and like trying to like have conversation with them or intervene in them. And I had found this footage from, like, it was like from 1927. It was like this old film where like the footage itself is just like, it's two women, they're nude, but they're running around through vistas by the ocean. And it's like so very, very tender. I like was reading about it and it was like, it was meant to be kind of like the actual film that it was a part of was meant to be kind of like a cautionary tale in the 1920s that like was cautioning against like young women's like sexual expression. In the context of the film was like, oh, like this is supposed to be like part of this larger societal like commentary or viewpoint about like there's like this moral panic at the time about young women, or at least like working class young women who like were now like able to like go to spaces or like be able to like move about the city, for example, New York City in particular. I also was interested in like queer spaces and historically queer and lesbian spaces in the city. And I was actually interested in particularly in Coney Island as a place where in the past, in the 20s actually, at the same time that this propaganda film was made and was being distributed, where like lesbian performers, dancers, singers were performing at Coney Island, and it was a place where gender expression was able to be explored by a lot of like queer performers in sideshows. And I was reading like a book, like my friend actually gifted me this book, which was When Brooklyn Was Queer, which like talked about Coney Island as this kind of like queer safe haven at the time. So I was kind of like really interested in the historical place and context of that. And then I was like, okay, like how can I'm interested in, again, collapsing past and present. So then, well, June, Pride Month, it was like, all right, like I go to Dyke March, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, I interview people at Dyke March, I film some footage, some 16 at Dyke March. I filmed that and I was like, how do I connect? How do I thread all these disparate things together? It just seems like there was like past influences the present, and then there's this while I was reading a bunch of essays, there's this essay by Saidiya Hartman called Venus in Two Acts, which talks about this idea called critical fabulation, which essentially she's saying that the archive is not like is not an objective point of view. it's all subjective. Like, and things that are archived, things that are recorded in history are usually like done by like the perpetrators of violence, and how then these archives like basically reflect that. And this idea of critical fabulation was essentially like trying to intervene in that and trying to give like these stories like actual full fleshed out tender moments that actually realizes them as full people instead of just like footnotes in these archives. So I was like inspired by that and thinking about that, and I guess a lot of my work kind of like does run in like adaptation in some way. And I was like, okay, like if I don't know anything about these women in this film, this 6-minute film that I just found, like how can I basically cut them out of that kind of like violent context, which means like they're like that basically like encouraged sexual repression but also criminalized their sexual expression, and like put them in a context where they're able to have that. And that to me kind of like was the collapse between past and present, in which I literally like cut them out, like rotoscoped them out of that footage and put them in the footage in the Dyke March at Coney Island. I'm Filipino American, which means like a lot of my family, and I think a lot of like Filipino people in America relate to this, are like overseas workers. So that means that I have like a lot of cousins who are like seafarers, tech workers, domestic workers, and they're, you know, scattered throughout the world. I feel like it's hard to name a Filipino family who does not have this experience of like either like someone is separated or someone is just like where there's in this other part of the globe because of work. Like it's a ubiquitous story. Like it's crazy. It's like an institutionalized policy. It started in the 70s. It's called the labor export policy, which like is a literal government policy which encourages Filipino people to find work abroad in order to bring back money or send back money from wherever they work as remittances. Because it's so institutionalized, government agencies literally have like a list, like a official list of recruitment agencies that recruit people, workers, to go send abroad. It's like 9 pages long. The information about these people are just so available, and it's just like, it's like on a form. So then I started like ripping basically like worker contracts, worker identifications. So then I was thinking about how like this entire like exporting of agricultural product is tied to this export of labor. That's like the core of what I'm interested in. So then I started printing these worker forms on like fabric that is associated with agricultural export. So I started trying to do it on rice bags, for example, trying to do it on coffee bags. I started doing it on burlap, kind of like trying to draw a direct connection between the fact that a lot of the land, a lot of like the product, a lot of the export is not actually like benefiting the people who know how to work the land. I think it was like, honestly at first I was like, this is like a kind of a way for me to like transfer images, transfer these forms onto fabric. So I was like, okay, like that's one layer. But then I started thinking about the connection between how it works and also the project, which is like talking about agriculture and labor and all these huge things. And I was like, okay, there's like something there. And also I had a friend who, like I brought a lot of material and we kind of workshopped in here on how to do it. And then even like with cyanotyping, like it was interesting as a medium because it was like, yes, it's photo, but the way that you do it, the way that the photo is developed is via the sun. It's through sun exposure. So I feel like that was like another like layer of connection because it's like agricultural labor being done in the sun. The only way that this print can be exposed or can be developed is through exposure to the elements, to the sun. This series is just like a series of forms that I printed out on burlap. Like it's like what drew me to it is just like she's my age, 25. She's my age. She's like the eldest. She has one sister. I have one sister. She's like really young. She has a husband. You just find out a lot about her life just from these like one form. And then I kind of like started printing these on burlap, kind of like over and over and over again. And because the burlap is like so loose, like the image is kind of ghostly. And it was interesting how when I was showing this to like people or my friends, and they were like, there's like a sense of like loss. A lot of these women make that choice to go abroad. A lot of them leave children behind, and they miss out on like, you know, getting to know or seeing their children grow up, specifically because they're out for work. People are always saying like, please do not forget me. Please remember, you know. It's really heartbreaking, and I think like there was this sense that I wanted to, like I like wrote some like titles for it. One of it is like, I'll remember you as you were, not what you'll become, you know. So then these, I was like, okay, like I really wanted, it's a play on this, but because you know this, yeah, you understand that this piece is a person that is being like cut out of these like forms. This was actually inspired by like a piece that I saw. His name is Ibrahim Ahmed, and he stacked like 100 textiles together and like basically made it into a construction brick of textiles. And I think I was interested in that technique as like a way to like make fabric like this like concrete thing. And I think like I'm interested to explore that with, for example, like the construction vests, you know, in the same conversation. No, I think like, I mean, the reason why I'm talking about this work is inspired by the fact that I was doing work with people, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a hand in hand. I think like for me, like there's the work that I want to be doing now, I think I feel kind of like a like a political and social responsibility to talk about, you know, what it has impacted my people and what has impacted my family, but in this kind of like, oh, this is like actually like a political issue. It's not just a personal one. And those things come hand in hand. I've struggled for a while trying to, you know, be able to balance all of life's things and also work and make work at the same time. But I think having like a physical space, I was like, I need to be in this space. Like I was like, if I have this residency, I want to be in this space as much as possible, and just being in this space like really motivated me to work. And even if it was just like having a conversation with someone, it just felt like I was like thinking about things, even if I was like reading here. It just allowed me to have a routine and this like drive to make things that I just didn't have outside of having it. And I think like something that I will take with me like beyond this is just like the routine and the ethics of, I mean, the work ethic that I had, and just like, even if it was like an hour a day, like I was still coming back here, you know.